So I'm joined by the hypnosis titan that is Mike Mandel. Now, I'm not going to give Mike much of an intro, and I'm going to explain why in a bit more depth in a moment. But I do want to share with you one of the things that Mike hilariously wrote in the credentials section when he submitted his application for the UK Hypnosis Convention. He wrote, "The God Hypnos come to earth in human form." Yes, Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Adam. That actually, it's funny you should say that. And that came about because I was getting a tire change. My Chrysler tire went years ago. I found a tire shop through Siri 400 meters away, and it was like a 17-year-old kid with Slipknot shirt. And he saw my license plate, which is Hypnosis. And he said, "Are you a hypnotist?" I said, "No, I'm the God Hypnos in human form to help people." And this kid goes, "Cool."
No, I said that I wasn't going to give you much of a kind of explanatory introduction, and the reason being that I don't think you need it. My experience of you thus far in this lifetime has proven to me, you know, I mean, here at the convention, for example, before we've even started promoting your workshop in earnest, you have more people booked onto it than have attended any other previous convention workshop to date.
Wow.
You know, wow, exactly. You know, so let's talk about it. Mindscaping, healing in 4 dimensions. You know, give us broad strokes about what it is, what attendees can expect to learn, and so on.
Great. Well, Mindscaping I stumbled on probably about 6 years ago now. In its inchoate form, I worked with 3 wonderful Canadian female therapists, and they helped me refine it and gave me their results of their work with it. What Mindscaping basically does is I started thinking one morning, since the brain loves metaphor, and we see this with clean language and all these other ways of dealing with people and helping people, what if we could get the unconscious mind, if such a thing even exists, I don't know. But what if we could get the unconscious mind to provide the metaphor that would unlock the client's problem? And that got me thinking. And Mindscaping basically is a way of accessing an internal map that can be as specific as that business meeting tomorrow morning, or as huge as my general health, or all my relationships, or attitudes toward money. And the results have been astounding. We have discovered, just like with clean language, that when one changes the metaphor itself, the internal representation shifts dramatically. And then their person's life changes too, often in startling ways. I worked with a man who had stage 4 lymphoma in Oregon, worked with him with one Mindscape online as a public service. The man went off chemo. He actually went back to work. He got so much better. I can't say I did anything. His brain did something. Yeah. And it's a way of prodding the unconscious to make powerful shifts very, very quickly. Right.
Yeah. I mean, great. I mean, people, like I said, this is looking, you know, it's a really popular event, clearly already. I mean, you talked about metaphors a little bit there, because you're also going to be presenting a 2-hour presentation. You know, we really want to make the most of you being here in the UK at the convention. Metaphors be with you. I love that. You know, using metaphor, using advanced storytelling to transform lives. Tell us about this.
To me, you know, although I'm primarily an Ericksonian, whatever that means, I work with the very, very direct stuff too. So I like to think of a neo-Ericksonian approach that basically is not either side of a coin of Elmanian, you know, George Estabrooks, this sort of thing, or Erickson on the other side. But I see it as a continuum so that we can intervene, be as gentle as possible, but as direct as necessary. And when I began working with metaphors, 2 of my mentors, the most influential people in my life, were my mentor, Derek Baumer, the trainer at NLP Canada, where we just no longer exist. That's a different company now. He passed away in 2000, but I did my NLP master training and my trainer's training with him. And his trainer training is a 2-year course.
Right.
And we brought John Grinder over twice, and he's my other mentor. I learned more about metaphor and working subtly with people from John Grinder than anyone. I am truly standing on the shoulders of giants. And I began to realize much of this stuff could be taught quite easily. We could teach people to have those amazing conversations with someone that are strangely therapeutic, and watch other people change in front of our eyes. I was going to Boston to do a keynote coming in from Toronto. Next to me on the plane was an elderly woman from Ireland, lovely accent. And she was going back to Boston where she used to live with her husband. He'd passed away 2 or 3 years previously, and she'd never been able to go back because the pain was too great, all the good memories. Now she was risking going back, and she was nervous about the trip and what would happen. And I slipped into my gravelly voice and jumped on my wheelchair and said, reminds me of one of my patients. Well, of course not. But I began to intersect her with a metaphor. And I couldn't say to her, you know, look at this hand, eyes closed now, sleep, you know, fire a PGO spike or something on a plane. They tased me when I got off at the other end. But I was able to say to her, you know, it reminds me of a story I once heard. And I generated a metaphor sort of on the fly based on my own personal experience. We got to the other end and this lovely woman grabbed my hands and she said, can I pray for you, young man? I said, I would love that. And she's Roman Catholic, didn't own a card-carrying Presbyterian, which would be, you know, but this lovely woman prayed for me. And I saw her at the luggage, you know, carousel. And she said, I don't know what happened. I'm really looking forward to going to Boston now. I'm not worried at all anymore. It was like, yes. Now, that's the sort of thing that can be learned to deliver very specific metaphors or to draw from her own experience on the fly and to get into multiple embedded loops. And so I find metaphor fascinating because it's the most gentle way of helping people in my way of thinking.
Yeah. And the fact that, you know, certainly when I've examined your work, you know, you've spent a lot of time on stage, for example, and doing things that require perhaps a very different type of communication on a camera as well. And so this is something that you've kind of arrived at recently, or because I see some similar themes within the presentation, within the workshop, for example, or is it just that, you know, the past decades, this is something that's kind of accumulated and developed, and now it's kind of more important to you, or what?
Good question. You know, Adam, I've been sliding up and down that scale between indirect and direct for many, many years. I actually discovered my own Ericksonian patterns as a 12-year-old kid in 1965. And began hypnotizing people. And I just ran into a man, again, Wayne Gibbs, who I hadn't seen in many years. He's in his 50s now. I hypnotized him when I was 12 and he was 10, gave him glove anesthesia, stuck pins through his fingertips, and his parents didn't find it as amusing as I did. I started then, but I was getting these patterns down without having a clue what they were. When I did my initial NLP training in 1992, 93, that got me to see the patterns of Erickson. I began to have a way of looking at some of this stuff. And so it's always kind of the stuff I've done, but on stage, naturally, just by the nature of a stage show, it has to be fast and much more directive. And but the subtle stuff is what I've always really enjoyed. And like I said, when Derek died in 2000, the last 25 years, I've really been working on the indirect model probably a lot more than I used to.
Yeah. You know, I love the fact that you've worked quite intensively with both. And you are familiar with, and you know both, and you know, I think even though you have that leaning currently, and perhaps there's a flavour there, I think when people are in a classroom with you or have conversations with you, as I've been fortunate enough to have done in the past, you know, I think it becomes aware of you know, I think anybody becomes aware of how much you know, and how much and how many different sources of stuff you draw upon. Within that, and you know, so I'm guessing, and I'm imagining as well that metaphors with you aren't just kind of necessarily metaphors as done by others. That actually that they're faceted, they're multifaceted, and
they are. Yes, absolutely. In fact, Adam, I just did something I've never done before, and I hadn't heard of anyone doing this. I was asked to give the keynote at Hypnothoughts Live in Las Vegas, which is the biggest hypnosis conference in the world. I think they drew 1,000 people this time. And I delivered the keynote, the entire keynote, in hypnotic language and as a huge multiple embedded loop. And there were linguists there. One at the back of the room had just suddenly went, do you see what he's doing? They recognized partway through. Somebody counted 10 loops. And I said, I'm not going to unpack it for you. The magic will disappear. But when you do it just this much, it becomes second nature. I said, I have lived, eaten, and breathed hypnosis since January 29th, 1975. And now we're on vacation. And what have I got with me? I've got a couple of hypnosis texts. And It never stops, because it is my fascination. Whether we believe it exists or not, whether it's a state or a process, is irrelevant to me at 66 years of age. To me, I just want to know the test of a model, as John Grinder said, is its usefulness. If I can make it work and help people have amazing changes in their lives better, I really don't care about the theory too much anymore.
Yeah. But I know from discussions that you have some in-depth knowledge about theory that are at your foundations nonetheless. And I really appreciate you speaking to me while you're on your holidays and while you're up north there, neighboring the North Pole, as you are currently. For people tuning in here, there's more information about Mike's presentation, about Mike's workshop, and so on at the UK Hypnosis Convention website, ukhypnosisconvention.co.uk. Come join us. We're thrilled to be welcoming Mike, and it's a rare foray that we get him in the UK. So come, capitalize, see if you can corner him outside of class. Go and tap him up for knowledge and joy. Thanks.
Love to spread it. And remember, Adam, remember that this Canadian was born in Chatterton in Manchester. So my dad used to say, you're a Lancashire lad your whole life. It's in the blood. And you never lose it.
You have done some great accents. and the whole time people won't know that you are sipping M&S tea as we speak as well.
What's MNSP?
Oh, no, M&S tea.
What's that?
The tea you're drinking, you told me beforehand. You were drinking strong
sipping.
tea.
I thought you said sitting. I thought I'm sitting in M&S. Yeah. This is Marks and Sparks Extra Strong. I've got some Yorkshire Gold in the cupboard as well.
Yeah, and the fact that they're called Marks and Sparks. That's the sign.
Well, I was raised with Noddy and Noddy and Rupert books and Dennis the Menace, the real Dennis the Menace, getting the slipper all the time, and it's in the blood.
It's the home from home. Mike Mandel, the one and only. Thank you.
My pleasure.